Well, it's time to open the school board meeting. So would you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, are there any changes to the agenda?
A nomination to add to the consent agenda. Melanie Hibbard as a JRMS CHS music teacher.
Okay. Thank you, Charlie. And also, can we add a donation from Mountain Shade LLC of $500 to the CHS Interact Club? Also to the consent agenda. All right. And then it's time for public comments. So Nick.
All right, so as usual, you'll see the policy up on the screen. Feel free to give that a read before you make a public comment. Use your first name, last name, and town of residence in order to do so. If you are remote and would like to make a public comment, you may do so by using the hand raise feature. Should be located at the bottom of your screen. We can address you there, and then you can speak.
Okay.
All right, I'm not seeing anybody right now. We do have a second public comment session at the toward the end of the meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Nick. And now it's time for the superintendent's report.
Great. Well, it's been a couple weeks. One of those weeks was a vacation, so this one will be fairly short. I just really, this is more of an update. We're still in the hiring process. I should be bringing several individuals, I believe, to the next board meeting, hopefully, for nomination. It's glad that we were able to nominate one tonight for the music teacher in this building. I was over at RMS, and I know that they were in the interview process of an elementary music teacher today. And certainly we have several positions open, lots of them in special education and the summer. Preschool update. Last time we had a fairly lengthy conversation about preschool and the possibilities of using ESSER funds and what that meant and the sustainability and so forth of that. And the board has been for several years now, I would say slowly but intentionally, moving forward with trying to offer more to our families and our community and our kids, getting them into the school system earlier. And this certainly really doubles our efforts to do that, to the point of it should be able to take everyone off the waiting list. And if that's the case, and that's kind of where we're at right now, and we'll find out next year and the year after, but that might be the universal level of 4-year-old, and that would be a fantastic place to be. And really, this school board and the school district should be very proud of that. That is not something that is offered everywhere. Matter of fact, it is offered in very few places to this extent. I think there are some places in the area that are trying to do more of that, but you're well ahead of the game. So you can see the cost breakdown there. I think it's important just to show and be transparent when we're talking about money and grant usage, especially when it comes to ESSER 3, because we've really made certain to use our ESSER funds in a way that is sustainable for the organization, that helps our teachers, that helps our children, that helps our community. that helps our staff members. And this is one of those areas that I believe will have significant impact in all of those areas, not just, yes, initially, but also in the long range. So you can see that this accounts for, the bulk is salaries, regular employees. And you can see all the other monies, the categories that get budgeted in our everyday budget. So this is a good kind of snapshot for those who are new to the school board to say, hey, when we budget for a person, let's say someone is in that second category there, full-time salary, regular program, full-time salary, nope. The salary is regular employees. Those individuals are perhaps budgeted at, like, say, 53,000 or something like that. Well, that 53,000, then also we're talking about health insurance, dental insurance, social security contributions, state retirement, which is why it was important when we talked last time about the state possibly taking on 7.5%. I think that conversation's been tabled at I believe, I don't know. So that's
Right.
That's not the greatest place to be. There's a lot going on in the legislature right now, but it's happening this week, so I don't have a lot of updates for you regarding that. But life insurance, disability insurance. So there are a lot more items that we are budgeting when we're budgeting for one individual salary. And I think it's important for us to be aware because it adds to our budgets down the road. But congratulations. I think you have something to be very proud of here. So that's my report for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ruben. Any questions for Ruben?
No, I just think that this is really important because I think that there's significant advantage to our children by having preschool available to them and to our parents as well. But I think it's probably one of the best investments that we could make if we're going to make an investment with the ESSER funds.
Right. Good. Anybody else? Well, okay, thank you. Thank you, Ruben. And with that, I think we're ready to move on to our consent agenda. I'll need a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it. Okay. With the amendments, with the two amendments, yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And abstained. Okay. So that passes 6-0-0. And thank you. And now we are on to our action items. The 2022-23 school district calendar.
Okay, so last session, we approved the start time, the start dates, the end dates, the vacations, all that kind of stuff. What we did, however, I had noticed that we had approved the early release days, but not on the dates that were going to work. They were the original draft dates that we had. So we wanted to clean that up. And today I also needed to double check just to make sure that I indeed did have the right dates. So before, when you voted, it was the February date would have been the 22nd, which would have been right before a vacation. That would not have been helpful for anyone to have an early release date during that time frame, especially not for families. And the same kind of a similar situation, it would have been like early May, which would have been right after the April break. And so these dates are strategically a little bit better for data purposes and for curriculum development purposes. The reason for 4 of the early release days is to coincide with the concept of 4 quarters. Even though right now the elementary uses trimesters for grading periods, nonetheless, it's wanting to increase the collaboration between the schools, even within the schools, within the grade levels. And we've had some good success this year. We want to kind of build on that success for next year. The only other change here is a request to, I think we color coded it differently here. Yes, the 27th. It's not really a change. It's just asking for some flexibility on it. Basically, the 24th and the 25th don't usually fall on the Saturday and Sunday, and so that we have to make up for 2 holidays. And so we had it at the 26th and the 27th. Apparently, the last time this type of calendar came about, which was before I was here, there was something called a floating vacation day that had been approved by the school board then. And so some members who were here during that time frame had requested to see if that would be a possibility. It would be for in the year-long employees who would fit into this category. And it means they could take the 27th off. It also means that they could use that day at another point in the school year that would be beneficial to them, with permission from their supervisors. So some people might, for instance, say, hey, I'd like to be working on the 27th to do some of the, I don't know, let's say payroll work that's going on. Matter of fact, I might even need to be in there for that, that day. It would be beneficial and it'd be hard not to. But the 23rd might be a nicer day. And so maybe I'll ask my boss if that day I could use. And so it's just a request for some flexibility.
Okay, are there any questions about the calendar? Oh, okay, so what is it that we would want to
Just
do here? You want
a
us
motion to approve the changes in the calendar from last time. Yeah, or just approve this calendar.
okay,
I make a motion to approve this calendar.
thank you, Kim. And Lisa seconds. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye. And opposed? And so that passes, that motion passes 6-0-0. Thank you.
So could they choose another day besides the 27th?
But they'd have to work on the 27th.
So in other words, if I want, if there are any days during this calendar year which are scheduled to be staff vacation days, they could work on that day and then not work on another day with the approval of their.
Just on the 27th.
Just that one day.
That's what I was asking.
Yep,
27th.
just the one day. Yep.
Very good. So if there's no other questions, then we'll move on to the food service contract renewal and look at the meal price increases.
All right, so Carrie's online, I believe, to be able to answer any questions. Just in a nutshell, this information right here. She put in, well, it would be best if she were the one to explain this. We did go over this in the finance committee meeting last week, and I know that this also involves us raising our prices by a minimal amount, lunch prices by a minimal amount of 10 cents. And there are a couple different, there's a couple different numbers in it. It's contingent upon some of the decisions you make here with this document tonight. So is Carrie available? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Carrie, we can.
Okay. So this document is comparing Cafe Services budget estimate. So it's not their actuals from this year because we haven't completed this year yet. So it's looking at what they estimated for this fiscal year versus next fiscal year. And when they did the budget estimate for this fiscal year at negative 46,615 as a loss to the program, it was based on running what you would consider a regular meal service program. At the time when the budgets were done for this year and next year, we didn't know that meals were going to be free for the entire year for all kids for this school year. So our actual numbers right now, we're at about a $95,000 profit in the food service program. There's a catch in the food service program because it's a federally funded program, so it's nonprofit. So you're not supposed to carry more than 3 months worth of your average operating expenses. So we have to be careful that we don't carry too much of a profit. So it leads us into having to actually spend money in the program, and we're hoping to get, good quality food and increased wages. So when we're looking at the budget estimate for next year, you'll see the comparison for what the increases are between the two budgets. So we're looking at reimbursements at having an increase of 9.2% for next year over this year. And then we're looking at cash receipts being a little bit higher. And then our product costs and labor costs, if you look, the labor costs are going up 20.2%. So we're anticipating that wages will continue to increase for the food service staff. The administrative fee is a flat fee, so that doesn't increase year over year. When you run or outsource the food service program to a food service management company, you do it on a 5-year bid cycle. So you go out to bid, and then every year you renew it. So next year will be the last year of our 5-year cycle. So it's the 4th renewal because the first year is your base year. So it's the 4th and final renewal that we would have with Cafe Services. And then after that, sometime next year, we would either decide to bring the food service program back in-house, or we would go out to bid again and just determine another food service management company. So we're looking at program losses based on their budget of $108,446. That loss includes some meal price increases. If the board does not authorize the meal price increases, then we would have to sign the contract with a loss of $114,675,000, because that $114,000 loss is based on our current meal prices. Another thing to consider is that because this is a federally funded program, we will be required, most likely, to increase our meal prices no matter what. We are not forced to increase our meal prices more than 10 cents. And they're looking at paid student lunch meal prices only when you're talking about what the forced increases are, because you can't fund your program with federally reimbursed dollars. So you have to at least charge enough for your meal prices to operate the program, because they don't allow you to fund it with the federally funded dollars. Unfortunately, they haven't come out with the information to provide to all of the districts yet as to what the requirements are going to be for those meal price increases. So what I did is I looked at, there's a paid lunch equity tool that they provide to you to determine how much you need to raise your student paid lunch prices by. So I had to use one that's from 2 years ago, because we've been operating on free meals for the past 2 years. And when I used that tool, we would have to increase our meal prices by at least 10 cents. So when you go to the next page, it shows a comparison between the meal prices. If we left our meal prices where they currently are at, or if we increased to what Cafe Services has proposed in that $108,000 loss that they provided to run the program for next fiscal year. And as I said, we'll likely have to increase our meal prices anyway. We just don't have to increase breakfast or the adult meals. But with the costs of labor and the costs of food increasing so much, it makes sense to increase the meal prices. I know I said a lot. Does anybody have any questions?
No, so I think what you're looking for is a motion to approve the the fifth year and the price changes, is that correct?
Yes, so I'm looking for the board to authorize the meal price increases as shown on this chart, and to authorize the fourth and final renewal of the Cafe Services contract, in addition to authorizing the superintendent to execute that contract.
Okay, thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Now, this meal price, everybody, it is true. Carrie gave us a lot of information there. It's a little hard to digest, but if there are any questions, take a shot.
So my understanding is that these price increases are based on a outdated model, because we've not been given an updated model, which makes excellent sense. And thank you, Carrie, for that, for putting that as close as possible. By signing the contract, are we locking in these? I mean, can they say, no, it actually is 50 cents we're increasing? Like, what's our guarantee that we're not going to have to come back and find another $1 million, you know?
So Cafe Services can't require us to raise our meal price increases. The board is has the authority to do that, not Cafe Services. However, because it's a federally funded program, we could be forced to increase our meal prices depending on what the tool lists when we actually finally get it. However, as I said, they can't require us, or they haven't in the past been able to require us to increase it by more than 10 cents per year. So we may have to do 10 cents per year every couple of years to kind of catch up, depending on what the tool calculates our meal price increases to be, but they can't require us to do it more than 10 cents in a particular year.
Thank you.
And Carrie, what about the breakfast price increases? Those are 25 cents per meal.
Right, those aren't required. Those are just recommended just because of the increase in food costs. And it did make sense when I was looking at the numbers, but those breakfast is not something that we would be required to increase based on the USDA tool.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So if there are no other questions, would somebody like to make a motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion. We authorize the superintendent to execute the fourth year of the Cafe Services contract, as well as also authorize the price increases that put forth in Carrie's memo.
I second it.
Okay,
Can I
Thank you.
just say it's the fourth renewal, not the fourth
So-
year, it's the fourth renewal?
okay.
Fourth renewal.
Thank you.
Fourth renewal, fifth year. Okay, thank you, Charlie. So, and seconded as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. So that passes. Nick 6-0-0. Okay, very good. Thank you. Now, next on our action item agenda is the purchasing guidelines revisions. Who would like to present those for us?
I can talk to those again really quickly if you'd like.
Thank you, Carrie. That would be great.
So this document, it's not showing the marked up changes that I made, but the changes I made were to the federal purchasing guidelines section of the guidelines. So I added quite a bit of language in the federal purchasing section to make it easier for staff when they're looking at our purchasing guidelines to see the difference between the federal requirements and the regular requirements. Because when we're purchasing from a federally funded program, the requirements are different and they're very strict. Districts are getting audited, so this has become useful to have it built into the guidelines, not just in the policy. And I also added one paragraph about if the state goes out to bid, we can also use that bid as meeting the requirements of a bid or an RFP. That's an allowable process. There it is. So all the red is what I've added. So we're
And
not
this
changing
exi-
anything.
And this existed already, correct, Carrie? It's just
If we
not
ha-
in this document.
Right, we have it in policy, so we're just incorporating it in the guidelines. So we're not changing our practices in any way. We're just adding it to guidelines to make it clearer.
Just for,
And the finance
excuse me,
committee has
just for the
reviewed those
record,
changes,
the
and,
copy that the board received, it has all of this language in there. It's just not red. So I just pulled up the copy just to show Carrie talking about the pieces being in red.
Okay,
So,
that's why she's got the red.
yeah, so it's
No.
the same document. There's just the red isn't there.
Okay, very good. And Charlie?
all this language was reviewed by the finance committee. You know, we didn't have any issues with it at all.
Okay. Great, thank you. All right, very good. So we need a motion to accept the purchasing guideline revisions.
Make the motion to accept the purchasing guidelines revision.
I second the motion.
Okay, Lisa makes the motion and Daisy seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? None. So that passes 6-0-0. Great, well, seems like a shame that we're moving through the agenda so quickly. Let's see if we can. All right, let's see if we can give it up. Okay. All right, very good. That's our action items. And now policy review, first reading. The JCA policy JCA, change of school or assignment, the best interests and manifest hardship. Who would like to present this?
I'd be happy to. So this JCA policy had been before the board 2 years ago, right before COVID, and went through many revisions, trying to combine two policies that really were redundant and make it much clearer. When it was found that it had never been voted on, then Ruben brought it to us last session saying we should take a look at this again. In looking at it, we found that the New Hampshire School Board Association themselves had gone in and consolidated those policies much more efficiently than what had been created and made it far more clarified, far more detailed. This is a powerful policy. This is something that we can stand behind. There are pieces of it that give authority to, I guess, the superintendent and the school board that, it is what it is. Part of this is, this has been fine tooth combed by the association lawyers. So this isn't stuff that we can really change. all this is doing is updating. This is pretty much word for word what the New Hampshire policy has done. So we're simply saying, let's take a look at this. I think this is what we need to be in alignment. It is much longer than the previous one and should be read through. So.
And Ruben, is there anything that you would like to add about this policy?
I think it's clear. I think it's great that we had the idea of combining the two because we knew that was needed, and I'm glad we got it back on the conversation docket. And Lisa knew immediately that no, NHSBA has a updated one, has done this, has combined them, and it's pretty thorough. I mean, what's important to me is that it has a procedure in it. So that's what we were trying to do, is we were trying to put a procedure in it because we didn't want to mess up. Because something like this, whenever you have timeframes and things of that nature, you want to make sure you're following them properly. So it's a good policy.
Okay. And I think our procedure on this is that this is a first reading. So board members have a chance to go back and take a look at this. And we'll bring it back at our next meeting for a vote and approval.
One other thing is that this policy addresses tuition, which the old policy did not, and it also addresses appeals in a much clearer fashion than the old policy.
Great, great. Well, thank you, Lisa, and those of you who worked on this. Okay, very good. So that brings us to our board committee updates. So why don't we start with policy? Because obviously you just did meet to discuss this one.
Yep. At our meeting 2 weeks ago, we focused on this, which brought a bigger question of looking more carefully at policies that might be being legally updated that we're missing. So even though we're going through these seasonally, we're kind of going alphabetically. We're in the J's now, which is a massive group because it deals with student policies. Super important to get right. Looking at this and realizing that, oh, well, in the 4 years since we've looked at A's and B's, maybe they've updated things legally that we really need to have an eye on. And so one of the things we talked about was setting up a schedule where the team splits up and just compares, doesn't fine tooth comb, but just picks a couple of letters and compares what the state is doing now and our current policies. Are there ones that we're really having too many gaps with? So that's something we kind of want to work on as we're still sticking with the J's and moving through the student ones. So that was just a suggestion made. So we'll work on that. And our next meeting will be May 18th, I believe. I'm just double checking that. It is the third Thursday at 4:30. And that's the 19th, May 19th at 4:30 in the SAU.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Now, the goals committee, I think I saw is scheduled to meet.
Yep,
next.
goals will meet the following Thursday. We have not met quarterly. So that meets the May, oh, I just lost my calendar. May 26th, again at 4:30.
Okay, very good. And the facilities committee will meet again on the 19th. So that's our next meeting. We don't have an update on that at this time. Finance, I believe, met.
Yeah, we covered the purchasing guidelines, the food service contract. We also covered how we're doing end of year relative to expenses. And it appears it's going to be very, very close, closer than I've ever seen. So we're going to meet again on the 18th at 1:30. And we're going to revisit where we're going to end up with, and also lay out what else we need to do.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And Then the Education Committee.
We meet next week.
Okay. Very good. And what day of the week is that you're meeting?
Thursday at 4 p.m.
Thursday the 12th.
And so those who are not on the committee, as with all of these, if you want to attend, you can, but you attend as a member of the public. That's next Thursday. Okay, very good. Wellness has not had a meeting since our last meeting, so we don't have any update there. And Nick, we were talking about the Communication Committee earlier, recognizing that you've been very busy, but we want to get your input on when we might schedule a meeting for that.
Yeah, excuse me. The goal originally was to meet tail end of April, and then some personal things happened for me and I wasn't able to schedule a meeting. So sometime in the month of May, we'll meet. I will say that I don't remember when it was exactly, but Charlie had brought up a point into looking up educational resources and how they appear on the website. I've already done some pre-investigation into that. The reason why it doesn't necessarily pop up in a search mechanic on the website is because the library resources and things like that are actually housed on independent Google sites. So those searches aren't actually going to pull in through our website. So it's a matter of finding those spots on the individual school websites and then going into those websites. Work obviously can be done to make that more well-known, to better publicize that. But that is kind of the reason that's been discovered so far. So those are still completely searchable through the individual library websites in terms of finding all the different materials that appear. Again, it's just kind of an independent of the district website. So. But again, like I said, we can see how we could better publicize that is a resource that is available to people. So.
Okay, thank you. And I think with that, we're up to public comments number 2.
So I'll put the policy back up on the screen for everybody to see. Again, first name, last name, town of residence before making a public comment. Make sure you adhere to the policy. And if you are remote, the way that you can make a public comment is to click the hand raise button toward the bottom of your screen, and then we can address you. All right, again, not seeing anything.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. And that brings us to board matters. Does anybody have any board matters they'd like to bring forth?
Is there any knowledge of a time frame of when all the closing activities happen that we attend for the different schools, all their everything?
Yeah.
That week that we don't do anything but here.
Right. I think that the days have been chosen, but I don't think anything else has been decided. So I'll let them know tomorrow that I'll make sure that we have some details in advance.
Yes.
Good. Excuse me. I'd like to apologize for all the coughing. This is not fun. I think that if there are no more board matters, then all we need is a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you.
I second the motion.
I think Daisy got you beat. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.